This is The Resilient Life, where we believe that every human will struggle in this life. Our challenge is to struggle well. I'm Ryan Manion. I lost my brother to war, my mom to cancer, and I'm the daughter of a retired Marine. I'm also a wife, mom, author, and president of one of the nation's leading veteran service organizations. Join me and some incredible guests as we explore the value of struggling well through life's inevitable challenges. Awesome. Welcome back to another episode of the Resilient Life podcast. I'm kind of fangirling at today's guest. We have Lindsey Vonn on the show. And Lindsey, like I said before we started recording, thank you so much for being here. I know how valuable your time is and how busy you are. And so really appreciate you joining us today to talk a little bit about resilience.
Of course, it's my pleasure, and honestly, it's the least I can do. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah. So, we have a connection through Project Rock. And we have been so fortunate at the Travis Manion Foundation that The Rock has chosen Travis Manion Foundation twice in the past few years to bring awareness to and support through the Project Rock campaign during Veterans Day. And what an exciting opportunity for us as partners with Under Armour. But I was more excited about the fact that you were a part of the Project Rock collaboration. And so, when they were like, well, it's The Rock, he's going to be putting stuff out. And they're like, and Lindsey Vonn too. And I was like, yes, I love this. Girl power. So thank you so much. And, I had written to you just to kind of bridge that connection. And, we'll talk about it a lot, but I see a lot of similarities between our stories, though very different. A lot of the things you talk about are things that I faced during my life. And so I want to start with just this idea of growing up in Vail. And so kind of fun story. I actually know your principal, Miss Ritchie.
No way.
Yes. So several years ago, pre-COVID, we had Ryan Philippi came and was the MC of one of our galas that we had. And he brought along with him his assistant, who I immediately clicked with, and we became really good friends, Brady Ritchie. And
Brady.
yeah, so Brady was,
Wow. That's a really small world.
such a small world, and we became fast friends. And I knew right away when I was like working back and forth with him, I'm like, I like this guy. He's fun. And so he invited me out to go skiing with him in Vail. I had not skied in like 15 years. I brought out my best friend who works with me, and we went out to Vail. It was right before COVID hit. It was actually the beginning of March in 2020. And I'm kind of prepping Brady. I'm like, Brady, listen, I skied in Tahoe, but it was like 15 years ago. I grew up in the Northeast. I skied in the Poconos. It's obviously very different. I'm like, you got baby steps, right? And so 15 minutes later, he's taking me down the back bowls. And I was cursing him the entire time, just about like losing my mind. My friend actually left the mountain. She was like, this is too intense. She ended up down at the spa. But I was showing Sean, our producer, I was just showing him videos that Brady had taken me coming down the back bowls because he shot down, and then I hear him videotaping me with a bunch of people at the bottom, and he's like, yeah, I may have miscalculated this. And I'm
Yeah.
up there, and it was the most terrifying experience of my life. But
Well, the nice thing is his sister is Sunny is a ski patrol, so
yes,
he can
yes.
just call her if there was any
And
problems.
yeah, and Sonny was working that day. But it was one of those things where being in Vail and having him take me around, and I kind of got my bearings straight, and we had an incredible week. And being with him at such an elevated level, he kind of showed me around, and I fell back in love with the sport of skiing. And I was like, why did I wait 15 years to get back on the mountain? And it was just such an awesome experience. And I was telling him last night, I said, I have Lindsey coming on the show. And he said, yeah, well, imagine you're going down the back bowls. Imagine that doing that at 80 miles an hour. Like, that's what Lindsey does. And I'm like, I can't imagine. So
It's really fun.
yeah,
Not as much powder, but it's amazing. I'm glad you had that experience. It's
yeah,
fun.
yeah. So one of the things that caught me when I found out that you were going to be able to come on here is it was actually an article I read about you. Um, and it was something that I didn't see a lot of, but your mom had suffered a stroke when you were born. And I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Obviously, I followed the journey of you losing your mom a couple years ago, but I was unaware that she had a stroke when you were born. And it was a People article from several years ago. And you wrote in that because of your mom's stroke, you felt an obligation to achieve your best as a result. And that resonated with me so much because I often talk about after losing my brother, I feel this deep obligation to like live a life worthy of his sacrifice. And I can't imagine feeling that like my entire life growing up. But talk to me a little bit about what that was like as a child and, just that journey to achieve your best because of what had happened at birth, essentially, with your mom.
Yeah, I mean, it was really challenging for her most of the time. I mean, she couldn't run. Her balance was really bad. We never really got to ski together. She tried to ride a bike many, many times and just would always fall. And it was actually pretty traumatic, as a child watching your parents struggle so much, and I like you said, I always had a deep sense of responsibility that I live my life to the best of my ability because my mom didn't have that luxury anymore, and I felt like I kind of took that away from her. Obviously, it's not my fault, and I mean, it's still hard for me to really figure it out in my head, but yeah, I felt like if my mom didn't have the opportunity, I owed it to her and to myself, to live the best life that I could. And especially now since she's gone, and ALS and what it did to her, life is so short and so precious, and we really can't take any second for granted. And so, everyone says, why don't you just slow down? You're running around the world doing all these things. I'm like, why would I? Life is short and I'm working hard, but I'm having amazing experiences. And I don't say no very often because A, I'm not good at it. And B, I just really want to live my life, like my mom would want me to.
I love that. And I feel so connected to that. And I wasn't that way before Travis was killed. Um, I wasn't kind of a risk taker. I didn't really seek opportunities in the way that I do now. And I sometimes wonder, like, is it that shift that somebody needs, kind of that, and you got that really, you were born into that. But for me, it was just this seismic change in my life. My best friend had been killed, and it was, how do I go on? And I had two decision points to make, right? I could have thrown the covers up over my head and said, I give up, I can't go on living. But I really watched my mom. And I watched my mom grieving the loss of her only son and deciding to do something with it and starting this organization that bared his name, which we thought very much in the beginning was going to be a small memorial fund in the Philadelphia area. And lo and behold, she helped grow it to one of the largest veteran service organizations in the country, to which we get to partner with great individuals like you and The Rock and Under Armour. But I lost my mom in 2012, just 5 days short of the fifth anniversary of my brother's death. My mom died of cancer. And so, as you were losing your mom, and I was, following kind of the journey on social media, I had such a soft spot just knowing what you were going through. And I talk a lot about grief, Lindsey, and I suffered really sudden grief with the loss of my brother, but that anticipatory grief that I suffered with the loss of my mom was almost harder. And I really felt for you during that time as you were going through that. Can you talk about some things that you did that helped you through that process?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, I think everyone, manages it in their own way. And for me, my mom was such an amazing person and always positive, and I always just said, I have to maintain that positivity. I can't let it affect me. Sometimes I can talk about it and it's fine, and sometimes I just really can't. But, my mom was, when she had ALS, she said, "Today is another great day, every day." And that's what I try to do. I just repeat that to myself. Every day is a great day. Today is another great day. And, no matter what we're going through, and unfortunately it's a club that we're in that, we've lost somebody. And I especially think parents are hard because they're the ones that are supposed to guide you. And there's so many times when I have, a situation, I just want to call her and ask for advice, and she's not there.
I mean, I will tell you that I still have my mom's cell phone number in my phone in my favorites, and I
Yeah.
call it, and I'll send a text.
I
I'll
send
have her
text too.
number. Yeah, and it's just, and I remember when my mom was dying, when she was in pain, she would call out for her mom. And
That's what my mom did too.
yeah, and it was like, wow, here's my mom. She's 56 years old, and the person that she wants most in the world is her mother. And,
Yeah.
and I think about just how big that loss is to lose your parent. And, for me, it was just me, my brother, my mom, and my dad. And I look at like my nuclear family now that was four is now just my dad and I. And my dad's a retired Marine Corps colonel. He's not super soft. He's gotten a little softer with age, but I'm like,
No, I would imagine
sometimes
not.
we like turn to each other and we're like, man, it's us. This is it, and it's just, but we talk a lot about like that grief journey and what it looks like. And, your loss is very fresh. Um, my mom it's been 12 years since I lost her, almost 16 years since I lost my brother. And um, I always try to tell people that grief never ends. It's never going to go away, nor would you want it to go away because that's the love you have for them.
Yeah.
But as the days go by, um, for me, it's more about having such a deep appreciation for the love I had for them and the things that they taught me while they were here. So I feel where
Yeah.
you are now so much because I was in that place for a long, long time. And
Yeah.
in fact, after my mom died, I dealt with a lot of depression and anxiety, debilitating anxiety. And I know that you kind of had some of those challenges throughout your life. Can you talk to us about times where you've been dealing with anxiety or mental health issues? Like, what has helped you to kind of work out of that headspace?
Um, I think skiing was a good outlet for me. I think anything physical is a good outlet. It's a way of getting out emotions and kind of having that clear-mindedness
Yeah.
to kind of reset yourself. Um, and when I was racing and, I had so much time to myself, and I started traveling to Austria, like to Europe, when I was 9 by myself. And so I really had to figure out how to be independent and how to manage difficult times on my own. And it's not like, you know, it is now when, there's so many resources available, and, everyone's talking about mental health. As an athlete, you're taught to be strong and tough and never show weakness, and, never let your competitors see what is really going on. And so I journaled a lot when I was racing. Journaling and just kind of getting those emotions out on paper really helped me a lot. And again, using skiing as kind of that conduit of energy, getting it out of me was really important. But since I've retired, it's been definitely a new challenge without skiing as a form of therapy. And I've started working with a doctor, Dr. Ramon Gonzalez, and he has been amazing. He works with a lot of athletes who are currently competing, who have retired, and just kind of helped me in a different way than most therapists. He's really given me a toolbox, of resources, of coping mechanisms, of things that I can work through on my own. So I don't need someone all the time. He's obviously always there for me if I need him, but it's not like regular talk therapy where you just go and you vent all of your feelings. It's actually kind of similar to, being an athlete where I have like a task and a goal, and, I have resources that I can lean on myself, not that I need anyone else. And I like that type of therapy. So that helped me a lot. But I think everyone has their own process. And, I think it's figuring that out for yourself, but actually taking the time to reflect inside. And I think the hardest thing in life is actually to know who you are and what you want, in a really meaningful way. And so I've been on a journey for that for a long time. I've always known what I want to do, but not necessarily knew exactly who I was. So, but things are going well now. So
Yeah, well, there's so many similarities between transitioning athletes and service members. And we
yeah,
talk about that a lot. Like athletes that I've had on that have retired, they talk about that transition piece. And we've had a lot of former professional athletes that have joined our community as civilians because they can so relate to the military transition, taking off that uniform and taking off that identity that was everything to you, right? And then it's gone. And what brings you purpose after the loss of that identity? And that's certainly what our service members struggle with. And again, I was kind of in the same place 5-6 years ago when I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression. Like there was a stigma around that. I'm trying to present myself as this strong female leader that's out there leading a big organization. I don't want to tell anybody that I'm dealing with stuff myself. I'm supposed to be the one, or I thought I was supposed to be the one, like, no, you can do it. Be strong,
strong for
right?
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then I had to like turn to this place where all of a sudden I had to be vulnerable. And that was a really hard place to be in, to actually put it out there. Um, and I tell the story a lot. I was diagnosed with PTSD and I was really mad at the therapist. Like left pissed off and
Like, F you, this is not me.
yeah,
This is not, I don't have this. What are
yeah,
you talking about?
misdiagnosis and but reflecting on it, I'm like, okay, she was clearly right. But I told no one for about a year. I just one person knew. I told no one. And it was actually at a conference in San Diego, a veterans conference I was speaking at, and I just blurted it out. And I'm standing there like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. And afterwards, the response was so different. And I was like, why am I not talking about this? Like, why am
Yeah.
I hiding this part of myself and this side of myself? And so I think, I love how far we've come as a society as a whole in addressing mental health issues and talking about it and making it more mainstream and acceptable. The military is slowly following suit. It's a little bit of a harder climb, but I've seen differences in society as a whole. And I think that's a big thing. And I think, you having the platform that you do, being able to openly talk about things that you've dealt with, like it's huge. And I think that in itself makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, I think to your point, we've always felt like we have to be strong for others. And, I'm a role model for kids. And how am I telling them that I have depression when, I'm supposed to be this strong person for them? But I think to your point, I think sharing our experience and being an example in that way is actually more impactful than maybe anything else, because it's giving them the strength themselves to get help and to acknowledge that something's not right, and potentially save their life. And so I've really leaned into it. I mean, I was diagnosed with depression when I was 18 years old, and I didn't tell anyone, I think one person, until I was 26.
Yeah.
And again, I felt weak and like they were wrong. And I was still taking medication because I knew I needed it, in the end, I knew I needed it, but it's just something that I wasn't willing to acknowledge to myself, let alone to everybody else. But the minute I did, I felt a huge load off my shoulders, and opened the door to a lot of really meaningful conversations with a lot of, people who are really struggling. And that was, I think, the most positive thing that came out of it.
If you could give any piece of advice to, again, you've talked about like journaling, the physical aspect of like finding that outlet, but someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm really struggling here. I'm in a bad place mentally." Like, what is the first thing that you tell them to do?
I think the first thing and most important thing is finding support, whether that's a family member to confide in, or a friend, or a therapist. I think talking about it is really important. It's a great first step. I don't think that's the end solution, but I think it is the most important first step. Um, and dogs are always helpful. um, Dogs are always a great remedy. That's why I have three. I love dogs, and it gives me a sense of wholeness without worrying if they care, how I've done, or if I've achieved anything. They love me no matter what. If I have a good day, if I have a bad day, I have to get out of bed to feed them and take them outside. There's a level of responsibility that, they rely on you 100%. They can't survive without you. And so it's that, incredible bond and unwavering love that I think really is meaningful. And I think that's why, there's so many dogs that are given to service members and given to people, who struggle. I think, there's so much more to that. And animals are just a great conduit to help us learn how to love ourselves.
Yeah, I think, and I love too that it's again be kind of come mainstream to these holistic types of
Yeah.
healing, right? Like
Yeah.
equine therapy, having dogs. We have a dog from a group called Warrior Canine Connection. They grant service dogs to veterans.
That's awesome.
So what they do is they have a program. It's called Career Change Dogs. And they dogs that can't quite make it as a service dog, they will grant
Aw.
to Gold Star families. So they brought us out there and they said, "We want to grant you a dog." And they were showing us around to a few of them. And they said, "This one's Corey." And Corey was named after a service member who was killed in Afghanistan. And they said, "Corey's great. The only thing is he can't work 24 hours a day, which you need to do as a service dog." They said, "He's pretty lazy." And I'm like, "I'll take him." And he is 100-pound golden that is the laziest
Aw.
ever. But he brings so much joy to my family, my kids,
Yeah.
just the healing and benefits that I see that he has with them. So I totally get it and can relate in a big way with that.
Yeah, Goldens are the best. I had a Golden growing up, and I have a Belgian Malinois as well, who wasn't quite good enough to be, a military canine, but she's amazing and probably smarter than I am still. So I feel lucky to have my three musketeers.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about, because I know people want to hear about your professional career as a skier and all of the incredible achievements, everything you've done, first woman to ski the Strife, first woman to win a gold medal. I mean, American woman to win a gold medal, like the list goes on and on. But if you could identify one moment over the course of your professional skiing career that was like the moment, what would it be?
It was definitely the Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that changed my life in so many ways. I mean, I had won 42 World Cups and many titles and world championships leading up to those games, but winning the Olympics changed. I think for me, from my family perspective, like that's what we always had worked for. And so it was so emotional from a family perspective. And then just from perspective of people actually knowing that I exist,
Yeah.
that I raised, that I've done something in my life, that was the moment where, people knew who I was, and it changed the opportunities that I have even now. That's the one thing that really sets it apart. If I didn't have that, I don't know. I could probably win every World Cup there ever was, and Americans wouldn't really know. So
Well, I'll tell you, Sean is our producer, and he's a young buck, but he said, I remember being a little kid and Lindsey Vonn and Bodie Miller. Like,
yeah.
he's like, I remember like that was a big thing in our house. It was like Lindsey Vonn and Bodie Miller and those Olympics. So yeah, and when you think about, obviously you've had a lot of injuries and a lot of setbacks over the course of the years. And I've got I have three kids. My oldest is a high school senior, getting ready to graduate, got recruited to play Division I lacrosse. So
Amazing.
she is kind of like on this path, but she hasn't dealt with tremendous adversity in the sport yet. And I know, the further she takes it, the more adversity she's going to face. And so, what would you say to like a young female athlete about kind of overcoming setbacks and challenges that you faced along the way?
I mean, you'll have more failures than you will have successes. And it's how you respond to those failures that will make you not just a more successful athlete, but a stronger person.
Yeah.
I think failure, it's only failure if you don't get back up. We have to find a way forward, and adversity teaches us so much more than success. I don't learn really anything from success other than, wow, people love that I win. But if I'm really thinking about it and reflecting, the adversities have all made me such a stronger person. And I think when you look at our youth and how they approach life, I don't think they respond to adversity in the same way that they used to, at least for my generation, because I'm old as shit now. But because Sean, your producer, watched me when he was a child, and that
Yeah.
makes me feel old. But but I mean, we have to teach kids that you will fail. You will fail over and over and over, but you have to get back up. You
Yeah.
cannot let it define you, and you can't quit every time you hit a bump in the road.
Yep.
You have to keep working hard. I mean, I see so many kids in my foundation who, someone told them, including their parents, that they weren't good enough or they couldn't do it, and they immediately quit what they were doing because, oh, I'm never going to make it. I'm not going to try hard anymore. This is pointless. But it's not about being an Olympic champion. It's about being the best that you can be, and about working hard and becoming stronger as a person. Even if, you don't win, you're still winning for yourself. And that's the lesson of sports that I think are so important.
Well, one of our values at the Travis Manion Foundation is failure is a bruise, not a tattoo. And
Yeah.
so it's something that I say to my kids every day, like,
Well, technically it could be a scar.
yeah, it could be a scar. That's true. It could stick around a little bit more.
I have many.
I like that. Failure is actually a scar.
Could be a scar, not a
Yes,
tattoo.
yes.
I don't know.
But it is, I talk a lot because, I played college or lacrosse in college, and sports was such a huge part of my childhood. And my parents put us in everything and had us doing everything and anything. And, my brother went on, he was a Division I wrestler at the Naval Academy. I went on to play lacrosse in college, but my parents didn't put us in sports for the physical benefits of sports. My parents put us in sports because they knew the fundamental lessons we were going to learn along the way. And so
Yeah.
that's why I see it as such an important part. And I always say, like, you talked about skiing as that outlet for you, when you're kind of overcoming something, skiing. When my brother was killed, the first thing I did was I ran a marathon. And I was just like, I got to do something. What am I
Yeah.
going to do to find that outlet to help me move past what I'm dealing with? And it was that daily repetition of one foot in front of the other every single day, doing something that kind of took my mind and took all the noise away. So I think you can learn so many powerful things about the physical benefits or the mental benefits of being physically active. And I
Yeah.
see that like you're there every day promoting that healthy lifestyle. And I try to emulate that to my kids as well. But I see that as just such a huge footprint in what we need to be teaching our youth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, people say all the time, why are you working out so hard? You're retired. I'm like, I need to work out. I mean, I don't work out and everyone says, oh, you're in better shape than you were when you were racing. I'm like, absolutely not. I just lost a lot of weight. And because I'm not lifting weights as heavy as I used to be, I'm not working out in the gym 6 hours a day, but I need that 1 hour where, I'm just purely present and I'm pushing myself, and it's one foot in the front of the other. And those things are, those outlets are really important.
Now, when you so you officially retired in 2023, is that right?
Nope, 2019,
Or
a couple
2019?
of years ago.
2019. You
Yeah.
officially retired in 2019. When that moment came, did you feel a sense of loss?
Yeah, absolutely. I grieved it as if something that I loved had died. I had to process it. And, it's not like, and I think a lot of the, people that are in the military would understand this. It's not like you can just decide to go back. It's not like you're a doctor and you decide, oh, I want to be a lawyer and I'm just going to, if I don't like it, I can go back. It's not like that. It's literally gone. And it was hard for me because I didn't want it to end. I was mentally still just motivated and wanting to ski fast, and that has never changed. But physically, I just couldn't do it anymore. I had 3 surgeries in like an 8-month span, and I was skiing with no LCL, bone bruise, three fractures, and a bone bruise in my other knee. I had 2 knee braces. I felt like I was being held together by duct tape, and I was like, what am I doing here? And I accepted the fact that my body was telling me no, but mentally, it took me about a year and a half, and still not entirely accepting mentally that I'm retired, you know.
Did you have a plan? Right. So you obviously that's a big decision. There's a lot
Always have a
of
plan.
questions.
There's
Yeah.
always a plan.
Like there's a plan around what comes next, like what the next phase looks like
Yes,
before you retire.
of course.
Yeah.
You always plan. Well,
Yeah.
there's always a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. There's always a plan. I'm my POCD planner, but I feel like there's so much that we cannot control in life that I try to give myself some sense of security almost by planning and working hard towards something. But my dad's always been clear that as an athlete, your day will come and you have to be ready for it physically, mentally, and financially. And so, I definitely planned ahead. I spent my whole career building relationships, building partnerships. I was never someone that took a check for, one-time deal, or something that I didn't believe in. I built relationships with people that are still ongoing. I'm coming up on 20 years with Red Bull, same with Under Armour, uh, 12 years with Rolex. All my sponsors are very, very long term because I've built those relationships. And so when I retired, it wasn't a hard transition from a business perspective.
Right.
I had jobs, I had roles, I had things lined up. I built a production company when I retired. I said, okay, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off and I'll call you guys, my team. I'll call you when I'm ready. Took me 3 days. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let's
Let's
go.
go. Yeah.
And they're like, well, are you sure? I'm like, I can't sit here anymore. And it was so weird to, wake up the day after I retired and not have a plan, not have like a focus. I think the planning, you can plan all you want, but when I retired, I always say skiing was my son. I woke up every day and everything revolved around it. What time I woke up, what I ate, what I did, who I talked to, everything revolved around skiing. It was the number one priority every day, no matter what.
Yeah.
And then I woke up and my son is gone. I have all these things. I have all these things to do. I have business. I have friends. I have family. I have all these things. But in what order? And what's the priority? What's the goal? What's the long term goal? What's
Right.
the daily goal? I have a plan, but not a goal, not a purpose.
Right.
And that was hard. And I still am trying to figure that out.
Well, if you could look, what's the, call it the most rewarding or the most exciting thing that you've done post retirement that like gets you up, that gets you really excited?
I mean, I like challenges. I there's two things that get me up every day, and well, three. One is my mom. Two is that I love challenges. I have to find something that is hard to get, and I work hard towards it. I try to get there. I mean, I can tell you that having a production company has taken the most patience. I am not a patient person, and it's taken the most patience because I work hard every day trying to get shit done, and it just doesn't.
Yeah.
People, it just doesn't work that way, and so that's been really frustrating, but also provided me with a big challenge to really get something done, to get something made,
That
and
industry is not a fast one.
no, it is so slow and I don't get it. I really, really struggle with it. Um, and the third thing is exploring the world. I love experiences and, like we were talking about earlier, just living everyday life to the best of your ability, finding new ways to have adventure. And whether that's, trying new sports like, wake surfing or e-foiling or windsurfing or whatever, new sport I try. I play a lot of tennis because that's a really good outlet too. I've traveled the world, and I think, military folks can understand this. You travel the world, but you don't really see anything. You see your world within, wherever it is that you are. And for me, that was the hotel and the mountain, and that's it. And so I've been places, but I haven't been places. And so I really want to explore the world in a different way. I speak German because I wanted to learn, the culture in which I was in constantly. Ski racing is mainly in Europe and everyone speaks German. But I want to learn more about culture and, why people, have different religious beliefs, why, people do the things that they do and, the things that they built and, all of those things. I want to learn more, I want to soak it all in. And that's kind of something that I really enjoy doing now. And I'm going to Hong Kong in a couple weeks. I've never been really to Asia other than the Olympics in South Korea, which I really didn't get to experience either, which I just haven't explored that part of the world. So I'm excited. And those kinds of things are things that I look forward to. And I always have to put on my calendar because the world is a big place, but it's also very small. And I want to try to see as much of it as I can while I'm here.
I love the way that you put that. Like I've been a lot of places, but I haven't seen a lot of places. And I can relate to that in the way of growing up as a military child. So, I was born in North Carolina. Now I stayed in the United States, but I lived everywhere. I was in
Yeah.
a different state every 2 years. And but I didn't really see it, right? I lived on military bases, went to school,
Yeah.
and then it was like as soon as we got there, we were planning on where we were going next, And so I've made that a priority for my kids and myself to start seeing the world. I took them to Europe last summer. Um,
Awesome.
I'm Italian and Irish, so we went to Italy and Ireland. And it was funny. My 9-year-old son said, "Mom, we're going back to Italy this summer, right?" And I was like, "Well, it's not like every summer
Well,
thing. But they got the bug very early to they were like, yes. I mean, they
that's
drank
an
it up.
amazing gift that you're giving them as
Yeah.
well. And I
Yeah.
think they'll really, I mean, they probably appreciate it now, but I know they will when they're older.
Oh, I think so for sure. So let's just talk real briefly about the UA Project Rock and the partnership. Tell us a little bit about what it's like working with, obviously you're a UA athlete, but working on the Project Rock, because that's, for those that don't know, it's very specific to like highlighting and bringing awareness to, especially around Veterans Day, the military community, veterans causes. What does that do for you in terms of giving back? I mean, I know you obviously have your own foundation, but you do so much just to elevate other organizations as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been someone who's donated to veteran causes, a lot of different causes. But I think for me, I've been an Under Armour athlete for almost 20 years. And only in the last, I think probably 4 years, 5 years, have I been working with DJ The Rock, on Project Rock. And I really love how he represents and supports and brings awareness to veteran causes. And, he always has something special. And, sometimes I have a hard time, when we do campaigns. I'm like, I want to make sure everyone knows that this is to support. We're not selling anything to, make money. We're selling this to support. And that is always something that I look forward to every year. And I love how, DJ is thorough with everything he does.
Yes.
He doesn't do things on a whim. He's methodical, he's thoughtful, he's kind, but he doesn't make mistakes. And so the fact that he chose, your foundation to support for 2 years, I mean, that means a lot. That means that you're really doing something special. And I hope you know that, because again, DJ doesn't do anything by mistake. So
Well,
he
it was interesting too, because the first time that Under Armour brought this as a potential opportunity, um, we didn't know how it worked. And they said, no, no, no. They bring opportunities to him. They'll put different organizations in front of him, but he decides. It's
yeah,
not some like
it's
team
not someone else,
here. Yeah,
it's
he makes
him.
the decision. And so that for us in the first year was amazing. But then last year when they came back and they said, he really loves what you're doing and he wants to do it again. And we were like, wow, this is awesome. And like you said, very methodical. His team is down to every last detail. And they just put together such a great campaign for us. So it's been awesome. Under Armour has been one of our largest supporters for, I think we're getting close to 10 years now with support from them. And they've been able to help elevate the work that we do and bring more awareness. And when you talk about this idea of your sponsorships and your partners, it's so similar to kind of the way we look at it, because we don't want transactional relationships
No.
with companies. Like, we don't want someone just saying, here's a check, go do what you're doing. And Under Armour, the work we do for them and with them is so meaningful because, we're working with them in Baltimore and we're running camps for kids and we're bringing in
Yeah.
veterans to help mentor kids, and they're helping us to find these opportunities. Like, for them, it's about not what can we do for you, but what can we do together? And
Yeah.
that's what we love so much about our partnership with them. It's really awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it should be. It should be a partnership. It's not licensing. It's not, here's, like you said, here's money, go do what you do. It's, how do we help each other? How do we grow together? And that's how I've always looked at all of my partnerships. And I think that's why, I've built such good relationships, is because that's how it's meant to be. We help each other and we grow together. And Under Armour is a perfect example of how a relationship should work. And I know Kevin Plank was the one that, sold me on Under Armour, because when I signed with them 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, they didn't really have any women's stuff. They didn't
Yeah.
have shoes.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's Under Armour, again, is just a perfect relationship and perfect partnership, and an example of how things should be done in
yeah.
the world. Not many people are willing, to put in the work, because it really does take work. And when you're building a foundation, I think the hardest thing is awareness and getting people to know that you're there and why they should support you. And Under Armour, definitely helps amplify the voices that should be amplified.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, couple last questions. So we've got, this community and audience are big readers. So what is, if you could pick one book to recommend for people to read, what would it be?
Grit.
It could be any, did you say something?
Grit by Angela Duckworth.
Oh, okay. Well, so amazing book. We love Angela. She's right here in our backyard at University of Penn. And
Yeah,
actually um all of our programs at TMF are based in positive psychology. So
cool.
that is the footprint for our curriculum that we developed to present to kids. We talk to them about the 24 character strengths and how they identify their own and, which ones are stronger, which ones are weaker, how can they utilize both the weak and the strong ones. So love that. And we love
Amazing.
Angela Duckworth. Yeah. And then my final question I asked to everyone, what does living a resilient life look like for you?
Living a resilient life is, to me, I mean, it's what my mom said every day. Today is another great day. No matter what you face, you put one foot in front of the other, and you enjoy it, because the downs only make you appreciate the ups. And resilience is something that we all should have but struggle with sometimes. So today is another great day.
I love that. And I think it's all about the mindset we take, right? Like making
Absolutely.
that decision.
Perspective. It's perspective and mindset.
Yeah, I love it. Lindsey, thank you so much. It's such an honor to have you on and
Thank you.
really
And
just
I just want to
appreciate
say thank you to your brother for serving, and to your father, and to everyone that served. My uncle was a ranger, and my grandfather was in the Corps of Engineers for South Korea. So I just want to say thank you to everyone listening that served. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.